The revelations that Exxon concealed its own findings on global warming have sparked a criminal investigation by the New York's Attorney General and calls for a federal probe like the one against Big Tobacco. But some aren't waiting for the justice system to act. During the recent UN Climate Summit in Paris, environmental activists and journalists held a kind of mock trial to try Exxon for what they called climate crimes. Hundreds from around the world, including participants in COP21, packed into a large, dark, warehouse-like cultural space to hear a stirring indictment of Exxon. It was overcast, it was gray on this Paris afternoon. A tribunal of judges heard testimony from witnesses that included scientists, energy experts, residents of frontline communities threatened by climate change. The witnesses were questioned by two leading environmentalists acting as chief prosecutors, environmentalist Bill McKibben, co-founder of 350.org, and journalist Naomi Klein.
These events are sometimes called mock trials. We call this a people's trial. There's nothing mock about this. There's nothing funny about this. The stakes could not be higher. Just as the global climate movement has been doing what our politicians fail to do by keeping carbon in the ground, stopping pipelines, stopping Arctic drilling, just as our movements are failing, are stepping in where our politicians have failed, what we are doing here is stepping in where our courts have failed. And we firmly believe that this is a preview, that this prosecution of Exxon will happen in real courts very, very soon. So do not consider this a mock trial, but a sneak preview of Exxon's future.
With the pleasure of the court, we'd like to call our first witness, if we could.
My name is Kari Jadangul Kuchinar. I am a poet and activist from the Marshall Islands.
Could you describe the sort of state of mind of people in the Marshall Islands? What is it like to live with the notion that the water is rising?
We're living in a lot of fear. We're living in a lot of fear that we would prefer to push back and not necessarily think about on a daily basis. I myself have confronted that fear that we could be losing our livelihoods, we could lose our land, we could lose our culture. And that kind of fear is haunting because, you know, if we lose our land, we lose our identity, we lose who we are as a people.
Where would people go?
We don't know. We don't know where we would go. There's certain islands that have, you know, relationships with bigger nations, bigger countries. We do have a bigger nation, a relationship with the United States right now under the Compact of Free Association. However, what we're campaigning for and what we tell everyone is that we shouldn't have to go anywhere and we shouldn't have to have a policy, an evacuation strategy.
How long have people lived on the Marshall Islands?
We've been living there for 2,000 years, right? You know? Yeah, 2,000 years. Over 2,000 years, yeah.
2,000 years. And in that time, the ocean has stayed at a level that's made it possible to pursue life there.
Yes, actually, we just went out to visit an island just this past weekend that we were told went underwater. That island went underwater within 10 years. Just 10 years ago, that island was lush. It had trees, it had coconut trees, it had animals. And within 10 years, this island is already gone.
So within the last 25 years, in the period of time that Exxon, for instance, knew about climate change.
Actually, yes.
There's been remarkable change.
I've talked to my elders, and none of them have seen anything like this in their entire lives. It's just getting worse now. So yes, within that time period.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you.
The prosecution would call Yanni Staffansson. Tell us your name and describe your work, please.
My name is Yanni Staffansson, and I am Sami from the Arctic. I was born and I live in a reindeer herding family.
Really? Tell us about the role of reindeer in the Sami culture and economy.
It's the center. It's our identity, our traditions, and it's the thing I strive to protect each and every day.
Your family engages in reindeer herding.
Yes.
They have how does one family keep its reindeer apart from another? How do you know your own reindeer?
The reindeers are migrating, and we are followers, nomads. They are migrating from the summer to the winter lands, and it's very, very, very long migrations. But sometimes they're stopped, as now. My colleague, he was going up to the mountains to get the reindeers down to the winter area where there are good vegetation. He cannot cross the rivers. They have not frozen yet. The reindeers cannot come over because they can't get over the rivers and the lakes.
Do you know how long the Sami have been engaged in reindeer herding in this part of the world?
As long as anyone remembers.
Many thousands of years.
Yes.
And in that period of time, they've been able to continue this work without interruption.
Yes. Yes.
What has that begun? You've indicated that that's begun to change in recent years.
So the temperature are increasing and decreasing, which we have never seen at such a rate, and each and every day is different. Usually I've heard stories about good winters, right? Where we didn't have to be out tending for the reindeers and digging holes so they can reach the food. But with the increase and decrease of temperature, there are ice crusts on the snow, which makes the reindeer unable to smell the food underneath, and therefore it will not dig for it. And even if they try, it's not strong enough, so they starve to death.
So because of these freeze-thaw cycles, it's becoming difficult for the reindeer to access their forage.
The food. Yeah, they're starved. We have had bad winters as such, as long as I can remember, and my whole generation. We are the generation of climate change.
Thank you.
Faith Gemmel, Nets Aigwichin, Pitt River, and Wintu, and I'm from Bushreich O, Arctic Village, Alaska, and I'm the Executive Director of Resisting Environmental Destruction on Indigenous Lands.
One of the things we know because of these investigations into Exxon in recent months is that as they were researching climate change as far back as the 1970s, they were interested in the economic possibilities this would present because ice would melt. And did you have a reaction to hearing that Exxon saw this as a profit-making opportunity?
It makes me angry. It makes me angry because we are ground zero. Arctic communities are ground zero for climate change. My children are going to be devastated by what's happening. And we have to do something now, and that makes me angry that they knew. And they're still trying to drill in these places like the Arctic Refuge, but also they've already devastated a whole ecosystem in Alaska. And they knew what they were doing. So it makes me angry because it affects my children, their children, all of our children.
Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you. Your Honors, if it's all right, we'll stay with this theme of the far north for a moment, but switch to the science side of this equation. We'd like to call Jason Box. Mr. Box, could you describe your work, please?
I'm a climatologist and glaciologist. We've been installing and maintaining a network of measurements on the surface of the Greenland ice sheet the last 20 years. And part of our work is to publish articles. So I've managed to be involved with about 90 externally reviewed scientific articles and contributed to the last 2 intergovernmental panel on climate change reports.
Hello, I'm Matt Powell. You said that mitigation matters. And you indicated also that you had read some of the Exxon disclosures. Is that right? I'd like to show you one of the Exxon disclosures. This is a June 6, 1978 document. Is that one of the documents that you recently reviewed from Inside Climate News?
Yes, I'm halfway through the Inside Climate News report. It's fantastically fascinating reading because it's a historical account of kind of a corporation that went rogue.
And describe what you mean by went rogue.
Well, they initially had a transparent, hardcore science profile. They were doing some of the best science in the discipline. And they then defunded those programs and then started to actively fund disinformation campaigns to perpetuate their profitability, knowing that the true cost accounting of their products would lead to, some of their own scientists are concluding, failed agricultural systems, drought, sea level rise, climate chaos. They knew that, but they went ahead and for short-term gain, to lie to the global public, and we will be paying for that for decades to come.
Can you state your name and your position, please?
My name is Cindy Baxter, and I'm author of a website called ExxonSecrets.org, and I've spent the last 15, 20 years researching the fossil fuel industry's funding of climate denial campaigns.
Based on this research, did Exxon draw inspiration from the tobacco industry and its track record of denying the link between smoking and cancer?
Oh, absolutely. I think Exxon and all the climate deniers that it worked with and the think tanks that it worked with were directly linked back to the tobacco industries.
Tell us about that.
Its doubt is our product. We have, for example...
sorry, what was that?
The tobacco industry's doubt is our product strategy. Doubt, engineering doubt, is the main thing that the tobacco industry did to try and create debate around the science, so that of the science of smoking and cancer, so that the public wouldn't be pushing for action on tobacco control.
Now, those tobacco companies were eventually taken to court and held accountable for that. Mm-hmm. Based on what you've seen of the Exxon revelations, do you believe that we're going to see similar lawsuits?
Well, I would like to see that. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, mm-hmm. but I would like to, because I think that if you know something, and we've seen that Exxon knew, and then we saw, and I've been very much looking at what Exxon did next, and what they did was, extraordinary. They spent $31 million from 1998 to 2014 funding climate denial campaigns run by think tanks, and also denying the climate science themselves.
My name is Ken Henshaw. I work with an NGO called Social Action in Nigeria. I'm an environmental rights campaigner.
So Rex Tillerson, the CEO, in 2012 said that humans have always adapted, will adapt. One of the ways that humans adapt is by moving, by migrating. Based on what you're seeing of the treatment of refugees in Europe and North America, do you believe that if Africans are forced to migrate because of climate change, that they will be welcomed?
It doesn't feel so, no. To me right now, it does not feel so. It doesn't feel so at all. I mean, I don't get the impression that if, for any reason, people in the Niger Delta in Nigeria who are affected by climate change had to move, they'll be welcome. Here in Europe, no, I don't think so.
And what do you feel when you hear those words from Exxon's CEO?
I really feel bad, because it seems to me that they don't take into consideration what people are passing through, and the revelations are becoming more and more dire. I mean, I can tell you about a community called Bodo in Ogoniland. It is the place where UNEP carried out an assessment of the environment, and it was confirmed that benzene, I'd never heard the word benzene before now, that benzene, a cancer-causing agent, is in the water people drink 900 times higher than it should be. People still drink that water now. It is the water I learned how to swim in. It is the water I drink till now. Life expectancy in the Niger Delta has drastically, dropped. The expectancy level is something between 43 and 46 years old in Niger Delta. If you drive into Bodo every weekend, the pastime there now are burials. What you see on each and every wall are posters announcing this burial or that burial or this burial. And every poster has got the age of the person, the deceased. It's hardly up to 50 years old. I am really, really scared, because I still drink that water. On the 1st of August, I was 39 years old. If life expectancy is between 43 and 46, I'm afraid. I'm really getting scared.
Thank you for your testimony.
That was Ken Henshaw, environmental rights campaigner with Social Action in Nigeria. He says burials are now more common in his community in Ogoniland because oil-related facilities in the region have contaminated the water with benzene. He was being questioned by journalist Naomi Klein. When we come back, more of the Exxon mock trial from the Alternative Climate Summit that took place during the UN Climate Summit in Paris earlier this month. Stay with us. Hi, I'm Amy Goodman. I want to thank you for tuning in to Democracy Now! We are so grateful to our fans and followers for being a part of the daily conversation. By choosing a news source that's committed to the truth, you're carrying the message of independent media, reaching hundreds of thousands of people every day. In these times of war and elections, we need a media not sponsored by corporations that profit from war, but a media that's truly independent, funded by you. Democracy Now! Is not paid for by the weapons manufacturers, the insurance industry, or the oil, gas, coal, or nuclear companies. We don't take advertising or corporate underwriting dollars. That means we rely on your donations to make our daily independent news hour possible. We need your support today to keep bringing you the hard-hitting, in-depth reporting you've come to expect 5 days a week. Visit democracynow.org, or you can call 888-999-3877. That's 888-999-3877 to make your holiday gift to Democracy Now! Today. Thanks so much for sharing Democracy Now! Stories all year long.